welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and this is the Astral Library. And we're back in my bedroom for a nice little cozy wrap up. So if I scooch you a little down here, I have a giant stack of books with me. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about those books and what did I read for the month of May. Now I will admit, I'm doing this video a little early. So if you take a look, it is currently the 22nd. So I technically have another week of May to do some more reading. So my numbers might change, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do this now because I don't see myself doing any extra reading. At least to the point where I finish a book, just because things are a little busy right now. You know, final season's coming up in the quarter system and your girl's so busy with so many different things. So reading's just not a priority at this exact moment. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about all the books I read now, because even though I've been busy, I've still read a good chunk of books this month. Before we dive too deep into what books I read this month, I thought I'd just give you an overview of my stats. So for the month of May, I read a total of 8 books, one of which is actually a DNF. And then I read 2,180 pages, all fiction books. And I've actually did a 50-50 split between digital and print this month, which is interesting. I feel like I'm not reading a lot of digital books, but you know, this month I can see how it got that, because I did finish a manga series and I read that entirely online. So that's how that 50-50 came about. So, and my average star rating was 3.25. So not a great reading month, which I think is definitely reflected in kind of how I felt about some of these books. But those are the stats. Let's go ahead and jump into what I actually read. So the very first book I read this month is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is I guess it's sort of the last book in the series, but it's also not the last book in the series. It's the last book that wraps up Avery's story in this series, who's a character we've been following for the first 2 books, but Jennifer Lynn Barnes is writing like spin-off books that are following the brothers on some sort of misadventure. I don't know. I'm not gonna read it. What can I say about this book? Not a lot of great things. I read the first book and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. It was silly. It was everything I wanted in it, okay? I wanted a Knives Out story. I got a Knives Out story. The romance was my least favorite thing about it. Book 2, I enjoyed it a little less. It was not as fun as the first book, I think, because we had such an emphasis on the romance. And then this book came along. I believe I ended up giving this 2 stars because I was just so frustrated the entire time while reading this book, because we have more relationship drama going on, even though we ended the love triangle at the end of book 2, and it made no sense why we were still having this like push and pull going on. And then we had this huge villain that came out of nowhere that didn't really have a tie. Everything about this book I was just disappointed in. Like I didn't understand why this needed a 3rd book. I think I said this when I was talking about book 2, that it ended in a way that it felt like the original end of the series. Like it felt like it was supposed to be a duology until Jennifer Lynn Barnes was like, I'm just gonna write a 3rd book, because why not? She should have, why not? Because this was bad. This was just objectively bad. I did not enjoy it. We got to the climax and it was over, and I shit you not, it was over in a page and a half, if that. All this build up to this big bad villain, and it's over in a page and a half. I'm trying so hard not to spoil this book because it's the last book in a series, but my god, it should have ended in 2 books, because this book was just a travesty. A travesty for what could have been a really fun series. This book just like took back everything great about it, because even though I didn't necessarily love book 2, I still had a lot of fun with it. This one I did not have fun with. I was frustrated, and I think that kind of reflected in just like how long it took me to get through this book, because I picked up books 1 and 2 and I flew through them in like a day or less. But this book took me almost like double the length of that time, because every time I picked it up I was just like dreading to like slog through another mystery that didn't lead anywhere, to be thrown into this stupid love triangle again that had no reason of being there. It was a disappointment. Having read this book, would I still recommend the series? I think to a certain audience, yes. I really enjoyed the first book and I think it's a lot of fun and I think everyone should give it a chance. I would give it the caveat that it does get worse as the series goes on. And then I might recommend stopping reading at book 2 rather than picking this book up because I didn't really think of value happened in this book. Nothing that was like made it amazing. You know what? I would rip out the last few pages and attach that to book 2 and call it a wrap. And then this book can go away. So after reading the final gambit, I decided to pick up something new. And I bought this book totally on a whim because Carrie Can Reads said, and I quote, "It's like the Raven cycle, but only with Blue and Gansey." And that sold me because I adored Blue and Gansey in the Raven cycle. They were some of my favorite parts. Other than Rowan's book, I love Rowan. I think he was such a fun character. But Blue and Gansey, that relationship, their phone calls and Blue Lily, Lily Blue, oh, to die for. So a whole book with them, I was here for it. I bought it, I read it, and of course, I'm talking about The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew. I've never heard of Kelly Andrew. And this book looked so pretty. Like, look at this. It's very, like, dark academia, spooky vibes, and the premise sounded so good. So in this book, we are following Delaney, and she has the ability to see and talk to the shadows. But throughout her entire life, Delaney's been really protected by her parents because she lost her hearing at a young age, and they kind of see her as overall being fragile, and Delaney cannot stand it. So she wants to branch off onto her own, and she decides that college is the best way to do that. However, Delaney cannot afford college, and the only way she could do it is to get a scholarship. However, the stipulation to her scholarship is that she must take a test and she must be placed wherever they say she has to go. That is the only way she'll be able to get the money to attend college. And of course, she full-heartedly agrees. However, the program she ends up in is a paranormal program that studies the ability to shift between parallel worlds. And at first, Delaney does not think she's going to fit in whatsoever, especially after she meets Colton, her grad student TA, that is somehow connected to Delaney's past. Don't be fooled. That was a really nice and generous description of this book. It makes it sound so much more interesting and so much easier to follow than it actually is, because my God, was this book confusing. This probably is going to be one of my biggest disappointments for the year, just because I was so ready to fall in love with this world and to fall in love with these characters, only for the middle of this book to turn into complete mush. And I mean that in the most straightforward way I possibly can. The start of this book and the end of this book are the most clear. Everything in the middle is complete nonsense. Half of it's because we have a character who is losing sense of time and she can't keep events straight. But even before that, I felt like the authors had such a hard time of delineating when she's switching scenes, when she's switching moments of time passing on. We have huge leaps in time in this, even before we have the character who is, again, losing sense of time. I didn't know, okay, has it been a day? Has it been 3 days? Has it been a month? It's unclear of when things are happening in this book. And to top it all off, nothing is explained. Truly, this is some of the weakest world building I've ever read, in that it doesn't even tell us, okay, what is this magic system you're kind of bringing up and this traveling between worlds? Is it parallel worlds? Is it a singular parallel world? What is giving these people this ability to do that? How are these beings that you're introducing kind of coming into this world? Why are they significant? Hell, she doesn't even give the biggest being and kind of big bad in this world a name. She just constantly says, "You don't have a name for us in your language." All right, cool. And oh my God, is the writing repetitive. The amount of times Delaney calls herself fucking Glass is horrific. Like, it was so bad. I cannot remember if I gave this a 1 star or 2 star. I think I gave it a 2. And the only reason it got that 2 is because there was so much potential in the romance and in the kind of plot and world that I would have really liked this to have worked out. But this book was just a mess. Nothing made sense. Again, I could not follow the plot line, and I'm not a dumb person. I was carefully reading this and trying to follow these dips in and out of time when we were losing that time within the character, and I could not follow it because the author gave me no tools to follow. They gave me no reason for why these events were occurring, why this world was the way it was, and why these characters were acting this way. There was nothing. Delaney was such a plain fucking protagonist. Awful. I hated it. I hated every moment of this book. And I genuinely cannot tell you everything that happens in this book because when I try to explain it, it sounds like a shit show. Like I was talking to my roommate and I was trying to tell her everything that happened in this book. And I was like, okay, so this happened and this happened. She's like, I can't follow you, Emily. I'm like, I'm explaining everything as it happened, as it occurred to me as a reader. I was so disappointed. I wanted this to work out so bad. I did. I really, really wanted this to work out. I wanted that Blue and Gangsy romance. And I could definitely see elements of it in this. But man, I should go reread Blue Lily, Lily Blue. I guess that would mean I have to reread the whole Raven cycle. But that's better than reading this book again, I'll tell you that. I promise you it gets better after this. Those are probably some of the worst books I read this month. Oh, you know what? Before we get on to the good, let me get to the one DNF I have for this month. And that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. You know how I feel about Leigh Bardugo on this channel. Me and her do not get along. The only book of hers I've actually enjoyed is Six of Crows. I hated Shadow and Bone. I've tried to read Ninth House at least 5 times. I can never get past the first chapter. So I don't know really what possessed me to pick up The Familiar, her newest book. Actually, I do. I heard that people did not like this book. People who love Leigh Bardugo did not like this book. And so I thought, okay, maybe it's going to be the opposite. Maybe fans who love her hate this book, but maybe I, who am not a fan, will love this book. That is not the case. I also did not like this book. I want to say 7 or 8 chapters in, which was roughly like 50 or so pages, and I could not do it. I could not. I was so bored. There is nothing about this book that hooked me in, and I feel like 50 pages is like one of my more generous places to say, you know what, this book is not for me, DNF. And I think half of this is because this is a like historical type of fantasy where we're definitely set in a older time period. I couldn't tell you what time period. I think it's like during the Spanish Inquisition, if I remember correctly. I don't even know if I should give you a summary of this book since I didn't in fact read it, but I will summarize what I do know about it. So we are set, I believe, during the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and we're following our main character, what's her name? Luisa, who is kind of like a maid in this rich household who's the wife of the house is just kind of awful. She's looking for fights all the time because her life is miserable and she likes to make everyone else's life miserable. And one day she goes down to like pick a fight with the cook and she sees the bread burnt and she's like, oh, I'm gonna get her. But then she ends up being called away, and when she comes back, the bread's completely fine. And that's because our main chick, Louisa, has magic. So in this time period, from what I gathered, that being Jewish was not okay. They were persecuted. And their magic in particular was heavily kept a secret. And Louisa's family could do magic, at least to some degree. Anyways, she gets found out doing magic and the wife essentially turns her into a party trick. And I don't know why the fuck Louisa does this, but she ends up like kind of going with it and is essentially kind of getting a big head about like, oh, I can kind of become rich and get out of my situation because of this magic. Like I said, I did not make it very far into this book for a reason. I didn't vibe with the historical time period. I'm not a historical girl. I don't really care. You have to, if you're gonna put me in a time period I don't want to read about, you have to really draw me in some other aspect, either the characters or the plot's really interesting, and that just wasn't happening. I felt like it was so slow going in those first 50 pages, and Louisa as a character was just not engaging whatsoever. She was so boring. So this is the only DNF I have for this month. So the next book I read, and this is like the start of the streak of good ones that I had, was The Bromance Book Club by Lindsay K. Adams. I'm not going to say a lot about this book because I'm reading this for a vlog that's coming out where I'm reading my 24 for 2024 TBR until I get a 5-star. I'm not going to tell you what I rated this, but I did really enjoy it. I think it was really cute and really fun, and it was everything I wanted from this book. I think I read this in 2 days, and that's only because I had to put it down so I can go do work. Otherwise, I would have finished this in a single sitting. It was just everything I wanted from it. All my expectations were met, and I had a lot of fun. But like I said, I cannot say too much about this. I don't want to spoil that vlog, but when it's out, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll put a little card somewhere on the screen that you can click on and go to when it's ready. But after that one, I was like, let's get the ball rolling. Let's read something I've always wanted to read and I've been hearing a lot about, and that was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot Diary series, and it was just a short little tiny thing. I ended up getting this from my library because I could not find this when I was like out and about, and this was such a great fun little read. I flew through this. I was reading it very, very slowly for me. I wasn't trying to like rush through it because I know I can read this in like a day, if not like a couple hours. But I really slowed my pace down and I was reading a chapter a day during a really stressful week where I was trying to get done a major part of my dissertation process. And so this was just like a really nice break from that. If you don't know, the Murderbot Diaries is a series that is following a sexless, genderless robot that refers to itself as Murderbot. But Murderbot, as the name kind of implies, is a unit that is served to act as a killing machine. Mainly, Murderbot acts as a bodyguard for different crews doing various expeditions. So in this book in particular, we're following it as it's working with this group of scientists on this extraterrestrial planet. What makes Murderbot different than all the other units, though, is that Murderbot hacked itself. It no longer has to follow the government module that would program and force it to follow commands. And so Murderbot's essentially gone rogue here. And how it likes to spend its time is watching soap operas and just downloading like Netflix and Hulu and just like all these streaming services to kind of just chill and lay around and not interact with anyone just so they can watch their soap operas. And honestly, it's a fucking mood. It's a lot of fun. It's a short read. I highly, highly recommend it, only to just meet Murderbot itself, because Murderbot's so fucking fun. And again, so funny, and their narration really, really adds to the story. I ended up giving this, I believe, 4 stars. And it only lost that star because the ending felt just like a little too rushed. I wish there was like 20 more pages, and I think that really could have like tied this in a little bit more and we could have like had a little more of that tension. But otherwise, 10 out of 10 recommend. So great. I will be continuing this series and I will be purchasing this series for my collection so I can read them. The next book I ended up picking up is actually like I'm not quite sure if this is a graphic novel or a manga, but it is Glitch by Shima Shinya. This is the start of a series. I do not know how long this is going to be, but I have to say, but I did really enjoy this first instance. So we are following 2 siblings who have just moved into this new town, and they're finding that this town's kind of weird. There's like glitches in reality where they think they see something but then it's there and gone, and there's also just like weird entities throughout the city that everyone just kind of accepts as being citizens of this town. So like there's a store clerk who has like a traditional angel kind of look for a head. Think of like a biblical accurate angel, and that's this guy's head, and no one comments on it. Everyone's just like, yeah, that's the clerk dude, John. He's been here forever. And these siblings are finding that the closer they look into this town, the weirder things are becoming. The only way I can explain this book is if you've ever played the game Oxenfree. This is like Oxenfree in manga form, in that like we have this like really cool like frequency. We have this like really cool frequency thing where you have to like get the frequency right to really see what's going on. Same thing with the glitches. You have to like be in the right moment. You have to have you have to be looking at it the right way to look through the glitch, so to speak. And so we're following these 2 siblings as they're trying to investigate these glitches and to investigate what's going on in this town. It was really fun. It was really sweet. I flew through it. The art is so pretty. That's why I think the art pulls me away from manga, because it's not the typical manga style. This definitely reads more of like graphic novel type of illustrations, but it's definitely got like the manga storyline. So I'm not sure where this falls in terms of categories, but I did really enjoy this. I think I ended up giving this 3.5 or 4 stars just because I was really, really intrigued to see where this story is going to go. So I don't know if the next volume is out yet, but I will be picking this up when I come across it. Those are all the physical books I have. The last set of books that I ended up reading are, I finished Anonymous Noise. I ended up finishing the last 3 volumes, so 16, 17, and 18, which was like the last 20 or so chapters. So if you don't know, Anonymous Noise is following our main character, Nino, who loves to sing. And she used to have this childhood friend who she would sing with every day and every night because they lived next door to each other. and they would sing at each other through the windows. But one day, her best friend Momo and his family move away suddenly, and she never sees him again. But she remembers a promise that Momo made to her during their friendship that if she sang, he would eventually find his way back to her. And so Nino really kept that promise and sang every day without fail. Jump forward 7 years and Nino's just about to start high school. And when she goes to her first day of school, she stumbles into her other childhood friend Yuzu, who is in a music club. And she hasn't seen Yuzu for almost as long as she hasn't seen Momo. And they also bonded through music, where Yuzu is actually a lyricist and composer, and he wrote a song for Nino to sing. However, Yuzu has a secret. He is actually a part of a masked band called In No Hurry to Shout, a band he created solely for Nino to sing in. So we're following Nino as she's not only getting more involved in this band and trying to figure out how to be a singer and how to sing beyond her dreams of reaching Momo, we also see Momo come back into her life. However, things aren't the way they used to be, and that Momo is a lot more distant. And so now Nino's trying to win back his heart while also dealing with Yuzu's own feelings towards her. I put it off for so long. I think I told you I have this issue where if I'm really enjoying a story, like a manga story, or even a book series, I will put off the ending of it for so long because I'm not ready for it to be over. And that was 100% the case for An Honest Noise, because I was flying through that series. I was reading volume after volume after volume. I think I read something crazy like 6 volumes in a day. And then I hit the last 3 and I halted. So I wasn't ready for it to be done. But I finished it and it was amazing and I loved it so much. It was so sweet. The ending was so great and perfect. I don't understand why people are so upset by it. No, that's a lie. I 100% get why people are so upset by it, because they are too focused on the love triangle between the main characters, even though I think that's a stupid term to apply to this book, because love triangle implies that there's a sense of tension between the two, like the main character is torn between her 2 choices. That is never the case in the series. Nino is always going for Momo and never Yuzu. It's fine. It's heartbreaking because all the characters love each other. And if I was going to make any couple a poly couple, like a let's make this a let's open this relationship and have an OT3, this would be the series I would do it. I'm not a fan of OT3s really, but this series I would say 100% would benefit so much more from it, in that I just want everyone to be happy. But that being said, I don't feel like we need that romance between Nino and Yuzu. I think they're so sweet as it is, and that they have something stronger than the romantic love that Nino has with Momo. I love their relationship. I think their relationship was so heartbreaking and fun and just hard hitting and really fit the series. But I love her relationship with Yuzu too, and just this strong bond that they have with each other. I found the series because I watched the anime. Every music manga deserves an anime. It deserves a full anime that covers all the songs, because I need all the songs from this manga. Just in actuality, I need to hear these words. I need to hear them with the voice behind them, because reading them on a page already almost had me crying. I can only imagine what it would be like to actually hear it. It was so good. I loved it. 5-star series. It was so good. It's so emotional. For a series that is, I wouldn't say super dependent on a love triangle or even super dependent on a romance, the series just has a lot of development with each character that they give us. Every character has their own hang-ups. Every character is growing each consecutive volume. Not only with Nino and her kind of struggles with Momo and Yuzu, but just her own internal struggles of her selfishness with her singing and trying to figure out what does it mean to be a singer in a band on a stage who is beholden to her fans' expectation. Fun. I loved every second of it, and I cannot go read it. All right, but that's everything I read for the month of May. I had quite a bit of reading done this month. 8 books is not bad at all. I'm happy with where I ended up. I did not have the greatest reading month. There was a lot of flops, but I think there's enough good ones to kind of balance it all out, you know? That's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please consider leaving a thumbs up and a comment down below. Let me know what you read this month. What did you love? What did you hate? What were you most disappointed by? Did you DNF anything? Let me know. Talk about what you read this month. Gush or vent. Even if I've never read it, you can have a spoilery conversation down in the comments. I'm not bothered whatsoever by that. But that's it for me. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!